You work too hard, still feel broke, still feel behind, still feel trapped. That is not random. There's a quiet pain millions of Americans live with every day. You wake up tired, check your phone, see a bill, a reminder, a price increase, a credit card balance, a rent payment, a student loan notice, or another limited time offer trying to pull money out of you before your brain is even awake. You go to work, you do what you're supposed to do, you try to be responsible. You tell yourself next month will be different, but somehow next month looks almost exactly like this month. The problem is not that you are lazy. The problem is that your financial life is being controlled by emotional pressure. Stress makes you spend. Fear makes you accept bad terms. Urgency makes you obey. Comparison makes you chase things you do not even want. And the scariest part is this: most people do not lose money because they are stupid. They lose money because they are predictable. Predictable to employers, predictable to advertisers, predictable to debt, predictable to pressure. Predictable to their own emotions. This audiobook is about breaking that pattern, not by becoming greedy, not by becoming cold, not by manipulating people, but by learning the money psychology of control. You are going to learn why you feel stuck, why working harder does not always set you free, why emotional spending keeps you weak, and how to build the kind of calm financial power that makes life stop feeling like a trap. Because the real goal is not just more money, the real goal is this: to stop being controlled. Chapter 1: The moment your money started controlling you before your bank account changed, your nervous system changed. That is where the trap began. Most people think their financial problems started with a low paycheck, a bad job, expensive rent, inflation, debt, or one wrong decision they made years ago. And yes, those things matter. But the deeper problem begins before money even moves. It begins in the body. The tight chest when you open your banking app, the small wave of shame when your card declines. The fake calm when your boss says, "Can you stay late?" The quick dopamine hit when Amazon says your package is arriving tomorrow. The silent panic when rent is due and your paycheck is already half gone. That emotional reaction becomes the steering wheel, and once money can control your emotions, the world can control your decisions. This is the part nobody sees. A man in Ohio sits in his car after work. It is 6:47 p.m. He has been on his feet all day. His manager criticized him in front of 2 coworkers. Traffic was brutal. His apartment feels lonely. He tells himself he deserves something small, so he orders food not because he is hungry, because he is tired of feeling powerless. A woman in Dallas gets paid on Friday. For 3 hours she feels safe. Then the automatic payments hit. Car loan, phone bill, credit card minimum, insurance, groceries, gas. By Monday morning, the paycheck is almost gone. She tells herself, "I just need to make more." But deep down, she knows something darker. Even when she makes more, the pressure keeps expanding. A guy in New Jersey earns decent money, better than his parents did at his age. But he still feels behind because everyone online seems richer, sharper, freer, more successful. So he upgrades his life in tiny ways. Better shoes, better watch, better apartment, better weekends. None of it feels extravagant. That is what makes it dangerous. The lifestyle grows quietly. The anxiety follows closely. The freedom never arrives, but this is where most people fail. They try to solve an emotional money problem with a mathematical money plan. They make a budget. They download an app. They promise to stop spending. They watch 3 finance videos at midnight and feel motivated for 48 hours. Then stress returns, and the old behavior comes back. Why? Because the real habit was never spending. The real habit was emotional escape. Money became the fastest way to change a feeling. Bored, buy, lonely, subscribe, stressed, order. Insecure, upgrade, scared, stay silent, tired, avoid the bill, ashamed, pretend everything is fine, and the modern economy is built to detect those emotional openings. Your phone knows when you are bored, apps know when you are restless. Credit companies know when you are stretched. Employers know when you are afraid to lose stability. Brands know when your identity is shaky. This is not a conspiracy. It is design. Every system around you is competing for your attention, your urgency, your insecurity, and your need for relief. So if you do not understand yourself, someone else will monetize you. That is the first law of financial self-mastery. Your emotions are either protected by you or harvested by the world. And this is why working harder does not always fix the problem. Hard work increases output, but control increases freedom. A person can work 60 hours a week and still have no control. They can earn more money and still panic every time something unexpected happens. They can get promoted and still feel like one emergency away from collapse. Because income without control becomes a bigger cage, you can decorate it, you can upgrade it, you can post pictures from inside it, but it is still a cage. The first shift is not about becoming rich overnight. It is about becoming less controllable by impulse, less controllable by shame, less controllable by urgency, less controllable by other people's opinions, less controllable by the emotional weather of the day. That is where real financial power begins, not in the wallet, in the pause before you buy something to feel better, the pause before you accept a bad deal because you are scared, the pause before you explain yourself too much, the pause before you say yes because you need approval, the pause before you confuse comfort with progress. Most people underestimate the pause because it looks small, but the pause is where power returns. A paycheck can be taken. A job can change, a market can drop, a client can disappear, a bill can surprise you, but if you can pause under pressure, you are no longer easy to steer. This is the part nobody sees. The financially calm person is not always the person with the biggest bank account. It is the person who does not let every number become an emotional emergency. They can look at a bill without spiraling. They can look at an opportunity without begging. They can look at a luxury without worshiping it. They can look at someone else's success without attacking themselves. That kind of control is rare, and rare things become valuable. Now, this does not mean you stop caring about money. It means you stop letting money bully your nervous system. Because when money bullies you, every decision becomes smaller. You negotiate smaller, you dream smaller, you ask for less. You tolerate more, you stay too long, you leave too late. You spend to cope, then cope with the spending. That cycle is brutal, and it is invisible from the outside. People may see your job, your car, your apartment, your clothes, your posts, your smile. They do not see the mental math happening behind your eyes. They do not see you checking your account twice in one night. They do not see the shame after the impulse purchase. They do not see the resentment when another bill arrives. They do not see the fear that maybe this is just how life is now, but listen carefully. This is not how life has to stay. The first chapter of your financial transformation is not make more money. It is stop leaking power. Because before money multiplies, control must return. That begins with one uncomfortable question. Where does your money control your mood? Not your budget, your mood. Does your mood change when you see your balance? Does your confidence rise and fall with payday? Do you spend more when you feel ignored? Do you become generous when you want to be liked? Do you avoid looking at numbers because they make you feel small? Do you say yes to work, people, or pressure because you are afraid of losing security? That is the map. Your emotional reactions reveal where your financial power is being drained. And once you can see the drain, you can begin closing it, not all at once. One pause at a time, one cleaner decision at a time. One refusal at a time, one honest look at reality at a time. Because the person who cannot face their numbers cannot control their future. And the person who cannot control their emotional reactions will always be sold something. A product, a dream, a lifestyle, a job title, a false identity, a temporary escape. So here is the first lesson. Money does not only measure what you earn, money reveals what controls you. If fear controls you, money becomes panic. If ego controls you, money becomes performance. If loneliness controls you, money becomes comfort. If shame controls you, money becomes avoidance. If discipline controls you, money becomes a tool. If clarity controls you, money becomes leverage. That is the line between being used by money and using money. And it starts today with a simple practice. For the next 24 hours, do not try to change your entire financial life. Just observe, notice when you want to spend, notice when you want to avoid, notice when you feel pressure to prove something, notice when money changes your breathing, your tone, your posture, your patience. Do not judge it, study it. Because the version of you that studies your behavior is already stronger than the version of you that obeys it. And if this message is hitting a little too close, stay with it. Subscribe if you want more chapters like this, because the next step is where the real shift begins. Once you see how money controls your emotions, you can begin learning how powerful people reverse the entire pattern. They do not chase money from panic. They position themselves from calm. And in the next chapter, we are going to uncover the hidden reason most hardworking people stay broke. They are not building freedom. They are building dependence. Chapter 2, Why Hardworking People Stay Financially Trapped. Why can someone do everything right and still feel trapped? That question haunts a lot of good people. People who wake up early, people who show up on time, people who pay their bills, people who do not ask for much, people who keep telling themselves, I just need to work harder for a little longer. But then years pass. The job changes, the paycheck grows a little, the responsibilities grow faster, the rent goes up, the groceries cost more, the car needs repairs, the credit card balance refuses to disappear. And somewhere deep inside, a painful thought starts forming. What if hard work is not enough? That thought is uncomfortable because most Americans were raised on a simple promise. Work hard, be honest, stay consistent, keep your head down. Your life will improve, and sometimes it does, but not always in the way people expect. Hard work can help you survive, hard work can make you useful, hard work can earn respect, but hard work alone does not create freedom. Freedom comes from control, and this is where the trap begins. Most hardworking people are not building control, they are building dependence. Dependence on one paycheck, dependence on one boss, dependence on overtime. Dependence on approval, dependence on the next deposit hitting on Friday. From the outside, it looks responsible, but psychologically, dependence creates fear. And fear changes your behavior. A man in Chicago works at a warehouse. He is reliable, he rarely complains. When someone calls out, he covers the shift. When management asks for extra hours, he says yes. not because he wants to, because he is afraid of being seen as replaceable. At first, this looks like discipline, but over time his life gets smaller. He stops applying for better jobs because he is tired. He stops learning new skills because his schedule is packed. He stops asking for more because he does not want to risk conflict. He becomes valuable to the company but powerless in his own life. That is the difference nobody teaches you. Being useful is not the same as being powerful. Useful people get used. Powerful people create options, and options are the real currency. This is the part nobody sees. The financially trapped person often looks busy, productive, and responsible. They may even look successful. But inside, they are negotiating every decision from fear. Can I afford to quit? Can I afford to say no? Can I afford to rest? Can I afford to take a risk? Can I afford to disappoint people? Can I afford to start over? When every answer depends on one paycheck, you are not free. You are managed. That does not mean your job is bad. It does not mean working is foolish. It does not mean you should disrespect stability. Stability is useful. But stability becomes dangerous when it becomes your identity. Because once your identity depends on being a good worker, you start confusing obedience with virtue. You become proud of enduring things you should be changing. You call exhaustion commitment. You call fear being realistic. You call underpayment paying your dues. You call self-abandonment being responsible. And slowly, your life becomes a transaction where everyone gets your energy except you. But this is where most people fail. They think the solution is more income, so they chase a raise, they pick up extra shifts. They start a side hustle with panic in their chest. They work nights after working days. They try to outrun the pressure. And for a little while, it works. More money comes in, then lifestyle expands, stress expands, expectations expand. The nervous system never relaxes because the real problem was not only income. The real problem was lack of leverage. Leverage means your effort produces more than a one-time payment. If you work 1 hour and only get paid once, that is labor. If you build a skill, asset, system, audience, relationship, or reputation that keeps increasing your value over time, that is leverage. Most people are trained for labor, very few are trained for leverage. A nurse in Atlanta works 12-hour shifts. She is smart, disciplined, and deeply capable, but every dollar she earns is tied to her body being present. If she stops, the money stops. A software worker in Austin earns 6 figures but spends almost all of it maintaining a life that looks successful. Nice apartment, car payment, restaurants, subscriptions, travel, clothes. Everything looks fine until layoffs begin. Then the truth appears. High income without control is still fragile. The amount changed. The dependence did not. That is why some people earn $45,000 and feel trapped, while others earn $145,000 and still feel trapped. The cage got bigger, the door is still locked. The key is not just make more. The key is need less permission. Permission is expensive. When you need permission to earn, permission to rest, permission to grow, permission to say no, permission to change direction, your life becomes negotiable. And people who need too much permission become easy to pressure. Employers know this, banks know this, advertisers know this, social media knows this, even friends and family can sense it. When people know you cannot walk away, they treat you differently, not always cruelly, sometimes subtly. They ask for more, they offer less, they delay respect, they assume access. This is why financial self-mastery begins with reducing desperation. not because desperation is shameful, because desperation is visible. You can hear it in someone's voice when they are afraid to lose the deal. You can see it in the way they over-explain. You can feel it when they accept terms too quickly. You can notice it when they say yes before thinking. And once desperation is visible, leverage disappears. This is why the first stage of building financial control is not glamorous. It is not Lamborghinis, it is not luxury watches, it is not some secret millionaire morning routine. It is boring. You build a gap. A gap between income and spending, a gap between emotion and action, a gap between pressure and response, a gap between what people ask of you and what you automatically give. That gap becomes oxygen. Without it, every decision feels like survival. With it, you start choosing. This is the part nobody sees. The gap is where your future is built. A person with no gap must accept almost anything. A person with a small gap can refuse some things. A person with a large gap can negotiate. A person with real leverage can walk away. And walking away is one of the strongest financial powers in the world, not because you are arrogant. Because you are not trapped. That is why saving money matters, but not in the shallow way people explain it. Saving is not just about stacking cash. Saving is emotional armor. It protects your decision-making. It gives your nervous system room to breathe. It keeps you from saying yes to things that quietly destroy you. A $1,000 emergency fund is not just $1,000. It is one less panic, one less bad loan, one less desperate call, one less moment where fear makes the decision for you. And eventually, that gap becomes more than protection. It becomes power. Because when you are not constantly trying to survive the week, your mind can finally look ahead. You can learn, you can plan, you can build, you can study patterns, you can make moves from clarity instead of panic. That is when your identity starts changing. You stop seeing yourself only as someone who works for money. You start seeing yourself as someone who directs money. That is a completely different mind. The worker asks, how much will they pay me? The strategist asks, what skill gives me more options? The worker asks, can I afford this? The strategist asks, will this make me freer or more dependent? The worker asks, how do I survive this month? The strategist asks, what system keeps this from happening again? That shift is quiet. But it changes everything. Because once you begin thinking in systems, your life stops being a collection of emergencies. You stop treating every bill, every purchase, every job problem, every stressful week as a separate event. You begin seeing the pattern underneath. Maybe your spending spikes when you feel lonely. Maybe your confidence drops when your account is low. Maybe you accept disrespect because you fear instability. Maybe you avoid numbers because they expose the truth. Maybe you chase comfort because your work drains you too much to think clearly. Now you are not guessing anymore. You are studying the machine. And once you study the machine, you can redesign it. This is the real beginning of money psychology, not tricks, not manipulation, not fake confidence. Control over attention, control over reactions, control over spending. Control over your time, control over the terms you accept. Because the goal is not to become a machine. The goal is to stop living like someone else owns your nervous system. So before you chase more money, ask yourself one sharper question. Where am I still dependent? Be honest. Dependent on one income, dependent on approval, dependent on comfort spending, dependent on looking successful, dependent on being needed, dependent on avoiding conflict. That answer shows you where the next level begins, because wealth is not built only by adding. Sometimes wealth begins by removing the thing that keeps making you weak. Removing one unnecessary bill, removing one fake status symbol, removing one emotional purchase, removing one toxic obligation, removing one belief that says hard work should automatically save you. Hard work matters. But hard work without control becomes a treadmill. You move, you sweat, you suffer, you stay in the same place. The next chapter is where the deeper pattern appears. Because once you understand dependence, you start seeing how modern life trains you to stay emotionally predictable. And predictable people are the easiest people to sell to, pressure, underpay, and control. Chapter 3, The Hidden Cost of Being Predictable. Who profits when your emotions become easy to predict? That question sounds strange at first. Because most people do not think of their daily habits as signals. They think, I'm just tired, I'm just treating myself, I'm just doing what everyone does, I'm just trying to get through the week. But the world is watching patterns. Not in a creepy movie villain way, in a practical way. Every purchase, every click, every delayed bill, every emotional reaction, every anxious yes, every late-night scroll tells a story about what controls you. And once your pattern becomes visible, your life becomes easier to influence. That is why predictability is so expensive. A predictable person buys when stressed. They say yes when pressured. They panic when uncertain. They over-explain when challenged. They chase approval when ignored. They upgrade their lifestyle when insecure. They make short-term decisions to escape uncomfortable feelings. And the modern economy is built around one mission: find the feeling, then sell the relief. That is how millions of hardworking people lose control without noticing, not in one dramatic collapse, but through tiny emotional leaks. A $19 subscription, a $42 delivery order, a $78 impulse cart, a $300 payment plan, a $600 weekend to feel alive again, a car payment that says, I'm doing better than I feel. Each decision looks small by itself. But together, they form a profile, and that profile says, this person can be moved. This is the part nobody sees. A woman in Phoenix gets home from work and sits on the edge of her bed without taking off her shoes. Her boss has been passive-aggressive all week. Her inbox is full. Her apartment is quiet. She opens TikTok for 5 minutes. 40 minutes later, she has seen 3 people with better bodies, better kitchens, better vacations, and better lives. Now she does not feel tired anymore. She feels behind. That emotion is important because behind is a profitable feeling. Behind makes people buy courses they do not finish. Behind makes people order clothes they do not need. Behind makes people finance lifestyles they cannot enjoy. Behind makes people rush, and rushing destroys leverage. When you rush, you stop asking better questions. You do not ask, is this aligned with my future? You ask, will this make me feel better right now? That is the trap. The product may be real, the offer may be legal, the brand may be popular. But the psychological transaction underneath is this: you trade control for relief, and relief is temporary, the bill is not. But this is where most people fail. They think discipline means fighting desire with force. So they shame themselves. I need to stop spending. I need to be stronger. I need to get serious. I'm terrible with money. But shame does not create control. Shame creates hiding. And when people hide from their behavior, the behavior gets stronger. You cannot master what you refuse to look at. That is why the first step is not judgment, it is observation. You have to catch the emotional pattern before it becomes a financial decision. Ask yourself, what feeling usually comes before I spend? What fear usually comes before I say yes? What insecurity usually comes before I try to prove myself? What stress usually comes before I avoid my numbers? Because the moment you see the pattern, you interrupt the machine, and interruption is power. A predictable person reacts automatically. A controlled person notices the pressure and pauses. That pause may look boring from the outside, but inside it is a revolution. Because every time you pause, you tell your nervous system, "You are not in charge of this decision." That sentence changes everything. A man in Tampa is offered overtime on Saturday. He needs the money, but he also knows he is exhausted. In the past, he would say yes instantly, then resent everyone all weekend. This time he pauses. He asks, "Am I saying yes because this supports my plan or because I'm afraid of being judged?" That one question gives him space. Maybe he still says yes, but now it is a choice, not a reflex. That difference matters, because financial control is not only about what you do, it is about who is choosing, fear or clarity, ego or strategy, loneliness or discipline, pressure or purpose. Most people believe they are making decisions, but often their wounds are making decisions for them. The wound of not feeling enough, the wound of growing up without stability, the wound of being ignored, the wound of always needing to prove they are not failing, and companies understand this. They may not know your childhood story, but they know the emotional buttons: scarcity, urgency, status, belonging, security. Fear of missing out, fear of falling behind. That is why so much marketing sounds like a rescue mission. Only a few left. Everyone is talking about this. You deserve better. Upgrade your life. Don't miss your chance. Become the person you were meant to be. Some of these messages are harmless. Some are useful, but if you are emotionally unguarded, everything becomes a hook. This is the part nobody sees. The more exhausted you are, the easier you are to influence. That is why burnout is financially dangerous. A burned-out brain does not think long-term. It wants relief. It wants comfort. It wants proof that life is still enjoyable, so it spends. Then the spending creates pressure. Then the pressure creates more exhaustion. Then exhaustion demands more relief. That loop can eat years. And nobody around you may notice because you still look functional. You go to work, you answer emails, you pay minimums, you smile when people ask how you are. You say, "Just busy." But underneath, your attention is being drained by 1,000 tiny decisions. This is why the money problem is also an attention problem. If your attention is scattered, your money will scatter too. Money follows focus. When your focus is hijacked by comparison, your money moves towards status. When your focus is hijacked by stress, your money moves toward comfort. When your focus is hijacked by fear, your money moves toward safety at any cost. When your focus is grounded in clarity, your money starts moving toward freedom. That is the shift, not perfection, direction. You do not need to become someone who never enjoys life. That would be another trap. The goal is not to stop spending. The goal is to stop being seduced by emotional emergencies. There is a difference between buying dinner because you chose it and buying dinner because your day defeated you. There is a difference between taking a trip because it fits your life and taking a trip because you hate your life. There is a difference between upgrading your home because it serves your peace and upgrading it because you need strangers to believe you are winning. Same action, different psychology, different outcome. So here is the practice for this chapter. For the next week, do not only track what you spend, track what you felt before you spent. Write one word: tired, lonely, angry, bored, ashamed, anxious. Hopeful, pressured. One word is enough, because after 7 days you will see something most people never see. You will see the emotional map of your financial life. And once you see the map, you can stop walking into the same traps. That is financial self-mastery, not looking rich, not sounding smart, not pretending you have no emotions. It is the ability to notice your emotional weather without letting it drive the car. And if this chapter is opening your eyes, stay with this series and subscribe for the next part, because we are building this step by step. First, you saw how money controls emotion. Then you saw how dependence traps hardworking people. Now you are seeing how predictability makes you easy to influence. But the next chapter goes deeper, because the most expensive thing in your life may not be rent, debt, or inflation. It may be your need to look okay while quietly falling apart. Chapter 4, the expensive need to look okay. What if the life you are trying to look successful in is the same life keeping you trapped? That question hits a nerve, because most people do not spend only for comfort. They spend for identity, they spend to feel normal, they spend to look stable, they spend to avoid embarrassment, they spend to prove they are not falling behind, they spend to make pain look presentable. And in America, looking okay can become extremely expensive, not because people are shallow, because nobody wants to look like they are struggling. Nobody wants to be the friend who says, "I can't afford that." Nobody wants to be the coworker driving the old car. Nobody wants to be the sibling who still has debt. Nobody wants to be the person who checks their account before ordering dinner. Nobody wants to admit that the life they post is heavier than it looks, so they perform stability. They smile through pressure, they upgrade before they are ready, they accept invitations they should decline, they buy small symbols of success because the real feeling of success is missing, and slowly performance becomes a bill. This is the part nobody sees. A woman in Los Angeles earns good money on paper. She has a nice apartment, a clean wardrobe, a gym membership, and weekend brunch photos that look effortless. People assume she is doing fine. But every month she plays the same private game: move money from savings, pay part of the card, promise to spend less, feel embarrassed, say yes to one more dinner because saying no feels like failure. Her life is not collapsing. That is what makes it confusing. It looks beautiful enough to hide the damage. A man in Charlotte gets promoted. His co-workers congratulate him. His parents are proud. He feels like this should be the moment he finally relaxes. Instead, he feels pressure to become the kind of person who looks promoted. Better clothes, better apartment, better car, better restaurants, better gifts, better vacations. His income increased. But so did the identity he now feels forced to maintain. That is the silent trap of status spending. You do not just buy the item, you buy the expectation that comes with it, and expectations have monthly payments. But this is where most people fail. They think the problem is the purchase. It is deeper than that. The real problem is the fear underneath the purchase. Fear of being judged, fear of being left out, fear of looking poor, fear of feeling small. Fear of being exposed, fear that if people saw the truth, they would respect you less. That fear is expensive because it makes you easy to move. A person who needs to look okay will say yes too often. They will hide too much. They will buy too quickly. They will avoid honest conversations. They will protect an image even when the image is draining them. And image is one of the most profitable traps in modern life because image has no finish line. There is always a better apartment, a better phone, a better outfit, a better car, a better trip, a better body, a better version of success to perform. The moment you catch up, the standard moves. That is why comparison is not just emotionally painful. It is financially strategic. It trains you to measure your life against someone else's highlight reel, then spend money trying to close the emotional gap. And the gap never closes. Because the feeling was never really about the thing, it was about belonging. A guy in Denver sees his old college friend post a new house. He feels happy for him for about 3 seconds, then the comparison starts. Am I behind? Did I waste time? Should I be further along? What does my life say about me? That feeling sits in his chest all day. By evening, he does not buy a house. He buys something smaller, new headphones, takeout. A jacket, a few drinks, not because those things are terrible, but because they numb the feeling of being behind. Small emotional purchases become painkillers, and painkillers do not heal the wound, they just teach the wound where to shop. This is the part nobody sees. Many people are not addicted to spending, they are addicted to the identity spending gives them for a few minutes. The person with the full cart feels in control. The person wearing the new outfit feels renewed. The person booking the trip feels free. The person buying dinner for everyone feels important. The person upgrading the car feels like progress is visible. Then the moment passes. The old life is still there. The same stress, the same job, the same debt, the same insecurity, the same quiet fear that maybe nothing is really changing. So the brain learns to repeat the ritual, feel small, buy something, feel bigger, return to baseline, repeat. That loop is not weakness. It is conditioning, and once you understand that, you can stop hating yourself and start reclaiming control. Because shame keeps the loop hidden, clarity breaks it. The first act of financial power is telling the truth without drama. Not publicly, not on social media, to yourself. I am spending to look okay. I am saying yes because I fear judgment. I am upgrading because I feel behind. I am hiding numbers because I do not want to face reality. I am performing confidence instead of building stability. That honesty may hurt, but it gives power back because the lie is more expensive than the truth. When you lie to yourself about why you spend, you cannot fix the spending. When you lie about why you say yes, you cannot protect your time. When you lie about why you need approval, you cannot build independence. When you lie about the gap between your image and your reality, the image becomes your owner, and nobody feels free while owned by an image. Real control begins when you become willing to look less impressive for a while. That sentence is hard, because looking less impressive can feel like moving backward, driving the older car, staying in the smaller apartment, wearing what you already own, skipping the trip, ordering water, saying not this time, admitting I'm focusing on other goals right now. At first, it feels awkward, then it feels clean. Because every time you refuse to perform, you get a piece of your life back. You get back money, you get back energy, you get back honesty. You get back the quiet strength of not needing everyone to understand your season. This is where emotional control becomes financial leverage. A person who can tolerate looking ordinary becomes difficult to manipulate. They do not need the newest thing to feel real. They do not need applause to keep moving. They do not need approval to make disciplined choices. They do not need lifestyle inflation to prove growth. That person becomes dangerous in the best way, not dangerous to others, dangerous to the systems that depend on insecurity. Because insecurity is easy to sell to, calm is not. The calm person asks better questions. Does this serve my future? Am I buying peace or buying performance? Will this give me freedom or another obligation? Am I choosing this or am I trying to be seen? Those questions are not glamorous, but they are powerful. A woman in Nashville decides to stop pretending. She tells her friends, "I'm not doing expensive weekends for a while, I'm rebuilding my savings." At first, she feels embarrassed, then something surprising happens. Two friends admit they are stressed too. One says, "Honestly, I'm relieved you said that." The performance cracks, and underneath it, real connection appears. That is one of the great hidden rewards of financial honesty. You find out who respects you without the performance. You find out which relationships were based on presence, not spending. You find out that some people were quietly waiting for someone else to give them permission to stop pretending too. But this is where most people fail. They confuse temporary embarrassment with permanent loss. They think saying no will ruin their social life. They think downgrading means they failed. They think being honest makes them look weak. They think people are watching more than they actually are. Most people are too busy managing their own image to inspect yours that closely. And the ones who do judge you for choosing control were never paying the cost of your stress anyway. That is a sentence worth remembering. Do not let people who do not pay your bills design your lifestyle, because they will applaud the image and disappear when the pressure arrives. They will like the photo. They will compliment the upgrade. They will say, "You deserve it." They will invite you again, but they will not sit with you at midnight when the debt feels heavy. They will not calm your nervous system when your savings are gone. They will not give you back the years you spent looking fine instead of becoming free. So the next level requires a quiet rebellion, not loud, not bitter, not extreme. Just a refusal to keep financing a version of yourself that is not real. This means you start separating joy from performance. Some spending is joyful, some spending is useful. Some spending is aligned. Keep that. The goal is not to become cheap, cold, or joyless. The goal is to stop confusing emotional theater with actual wealth. Actual wealth often looks boring at first. A paid-off card, a quiet weekend, a used car that runs. A smaller apartment with breathing room, a savings account nobody claps for. A skill you practice after work, a boundary that saves your energy, a calendar with fewer fake obligations. Boring is underrated. Boring is where control grows and control compounds. The person who stops performing has more room to build. The person with more room can think longer term. The person who thinks longer term makes cleaner decisions. The person who makes cleaner decisions becomes harder to pressure. The person who is harder to pressure gains leverage. That is the journey, from image to honesty, from honesty to space, from space to control, from control to power. So here is the practice for this chapter. Look at your last 10 purchases that were not basic survival, not with shame, with curiosity. Ask one question for each. Was this for my life or was this for my image? Some answers will be simple. Some will sting. Good. That sting is information. It shows you where your identity has been rented out to other people's opinions. Then choose one performance expense to pause, not forever, just long enough to prove you can survive without it. Skip one status purchase. Decline one expensive plan, delay one upgrade, cancel one subscription attached to a fantasy version of you, wear what you already own. Cook at home when you wanted to spend from stress. Small moves restore self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation of financial control. Because when you trust yourself, you stop needing money to constantly fix your mood. You stop needing purchases to prove your worth. You stop needing strangers to validate your progress, and eventually something beautiful happens. Your life becomes quieter but stronger, less impressive to the wrong people, more peaceful to you. That is not failure. That is freedom beginning to show its face. In the next chapter, we move into one of the most powerful shifts in money psychology: why emotional spending is not really about money at all. It is about pain relief. And once you learn how to handle pain without buying relief, your financial life starts changing faster than you expect. Chapter 5. Emotional spending is pain relief in disguise. What are you really buying when you buy something you do not need? Most people answer too quickly. They say, "I just wanted it. I deserved it. It was on sale. It was only a little thing. I work hard, so why not?" And sometimes that is true. Sometimes spending is simple. You buy food because you need food. You buy clothes because you need clothes. You pay for something useful because it improves your life. But emotional spending is different. Emotional spending is not about the thing. It is about the state you are trying to enter. Calm, control, excitement, comfort, escape, importance. A moment where life feels less heavy. That is why emotional spending can feel so powerful in the moment and so empty afterward. Because the purchase was never designed to solve the real pain, it was designed to interrupt it. A man in Cleveland gets home after a long day at work. His supervisor was short with him. His back hurts. His fridge has food in it, but cooking feels like one more responsibility, so he orders delivery. Again, the food arrives, the bag feels warm, the first bite feels like peace. For 20 minutes, he is not an exhausted employee. He is not worried about bills. He is not thinking about the argument he avoided. He is not looking at the future. He is just relieved. Then the food is gone, the receipt is still there, the same problems are still waiting. And now there is a quiet layer of guilt sitting on top of the stress. This is the part nobody sees. Emotional spending often begins as self-care. But when self-care becomes self-escape, it starts stealing from the future. Not only financially, mentally, because every time you use money to avoid a feeling, your brain learns a dangerous lesson. Pain can be purchased away. That lesson is profitable to the world and expensive to you. Because life will keep producing discomfort, stress from work, loneliness at night, fear about the future, shame about the past, boredom on weekends, comparison after scrolling, anger you do not know how to express. If every uncomfortable feeling requires a transaction, your money will never feel safe. You will not be managing a budget. You will be funding your nervous system, and the nervous system has no spending limit. But this is where most people fail. They try to cut the spending without replacing the relief. They say, "I'm done ordering out. I'm done shopping online. I'm done wasting money. I'm going to be disciplined now." Then the next painful day arrives. And discipline suddenly feels far away, because the brain does not want a spreadsheet during emotional distress. It wants relief. So if you remove the purchase but keep the pain untreated, the pressure builds until the old habit comes back stronger. That is why financial self-mastery is not just about saying no. It is about learning how to sit with discomfort without immediately needing to change it. That sounds simple. It is not. Most people have never been taught how to feel bad without escaping. They were taught to work harder, Stay busy, scroll, drink, eat, shop, watch something, text someone, find a distraction. Anything but sit quietly with the feeling and ask, what is this trying to tell me? A woman in Boston keeps buying home decor. Candles, blankets, wall art. Little things that make her apartment feel warmer, nothing wrong with that. But one night after another package arrives, she looks around and realizes something. She is not decorating her apartment. She is trying to make loneliness look beautiful. That realization hurts, but it also frees her, because now the problem has a name, and a named problem is easier to fight than a hidden one. This is the part nobody sees. The purchase is often the symptom. The emotion is the engine. A person who keeps buying clothes may not need more clothes, they may need confidence. A person who keeps ordering food may not need more food, they may need rest. A person who keeps upgrading their phone may not need better technology, they may need to feel relevant. A person who keeps spending on others may not be generous, they may be afraid of being unloved. That last one is painful. Because many people hide emotional spending behind kindness. They pay for dinner, they buy gifts, they cover people, they say, "Don't worry, I got it." And sometimes that comes from love, but sometimes it comes from fear. Fear that if they stop giving, people will stop staying. That kind of spending is not generosity. It is emotional rent. You are paying to feel secure in relationships that should not require constant proof. And that is one of the fastest ways to drain both money and self-respect. Because when money becomes the tool you use to earn love, you will always feel underpriced. The real solution begins with separation. Separate the purchase from the pain. Before you buy, pause and ask, what feeling am I trying to change? Not, can I afford this? That question matters, but it comes second. First ask, what am I trying to escape? If the answer is hunger, need, usefulness, or planned enjoyment, fine. But if the answer is shame, loneliness, anger, boredom, insecurity, or exhaustion, slow down. Do not shame yourself. Study yourself. Because the goal is not to become someone who never spends. The goal is to become someone who knows why they spend. A person who knows why they spend can choose. A person who does not know why they spend gets chosen by the emotion. And emotions are terrible financial advisors. They are loud. They are urgent, they are dramatic. They want relief now and consequences later. Your future needs a calmer leader. That leader is built through small interruptions, not massive life changes, small pauses. Before you order the food, drink water and wait 10 minutes. Before you buy the item, leave it in the cart for 24 hours. Before you say yes to the plan, check your actual numbers. Before you upgrade, ask what problem the upgrade is solving. Before you spend because you feel bad, name the feeling out loud. I am tired. I am lonely. I am angry. I am embarrassed. I feel behind. I want control. Naming the feeling takes power away from the impulse. It moves the decision from the body back into the mind. And once the mind is back online, you can make a cleaner choice. Maybe you still buy it, but now you are buying from awareness, not possession. That difference matters. Because one purchase can be harmless, but a pattern of unconscious purchases becomes a life strategy. And if your life strategy is buy relief every time pain appears, freedom will always stay out of reach. The better strategy is emotional replacement. You need a list of free or low-cost ways to change your state without draining your future. Take a walk without your phone. Clean one small area, make a simple meal. Call someone who does not require performance. Write the angry thought down instead of acting on it. Stretch, shower, sleep. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Go outside and let your nervous system remember the world is bigger than your problem. These actions sound too basic. That is why people ignore them, but basic is not weak. Basic is where control is rebuilt. Most financial transformations are not destroyed by one giant mistake. They are destroyed by the refusal to master basic emotional regulation. This is not glamorous, but it is powerful, because once you learn how to calm yourself without spending, money stops being your emotional medication. Then it can become what it was always supposed to be, a tool for options, a tool for protection, a tool for building, a tool for freedom, not a drug for temporary relief. And if this chapter is helping you see your own patterns more clearly, stay with the journey. Subscribe and keep listening, because every chapter is designed to move you from emotional reaction to real control. Here is the practice for this chapter. For the next 7 days, create a delay rule. Any non-essential purchase must wait 24 hours, not because you are punishing yourself. Because you are training your nervous system to understand that urgency is not an order. During that 24 hours, ask 3 questions. What feeling started this desire? Will this purchase still matter tomorrow? Is there a free way to meet the real need? Those 3 questions can save more than money. They can save your attention. They can save your confidence. They can save you from becoming someone who keeps buying a life instead of building one. Because every time you choose not to purchase false relief, you strengthen something deeper, self-trust, and self-trust is priceless. When you trust yourself, your bank balance no longer decides your entire mood. When you trust yourself, you can face your numbers without hiding. When you trust yourself, you stop needing every hard day to end with a transaction. When you trust yourself, you become harder to manipulate. That is where real money psychology begins, not in earning more, but in needing less escape. And once escape loses its grip, something powerful happens. You begin to feel space. Space in your mind, space in your budget, space in your future. And in the next chapter, we will talk about what to do with that space. Because money does not grow only from discipline, it grows from direction. And without direction, even saved money can become another form of fear. Chapter 6, A Saved Money Without Direction Becomes Fear. What happens when you finally stop leaking money but still do not feel free? That is the question most people are not ready for. Because at first, saving feels like the answer. You cut back, you cancel things, you stop buying relief, you delay purchases. You finally build a little breathing room, and for a moment it feels powerful. Then something strange happens. The money sits there. And instead of confidence, you feel anxiety. What if I lose it? What if it is not enough? What if something happens? What if I make the wrong move? Now money is not disappearing as fast. But it is still controlling your nervous system. That is a different kind of trap. Because money without direction becomes emotional storage. It holds fear, it holds pressure, it holds old survival memories. It holds the belief that one mistake could ruin everything. This is the part nobody sees. A man in Minneapolis finally saves $5,000 after years of living paycheck to paycheck. He should feel proud, and part of him does. But every time he looks at the number, he does not feel free. He feels protective. He checks it too often. He avoids using any of it. He panics when his car makes a noise. He feels guilty buying anything, even something useful. The money did not make him calm. It gave his fear something new to guard. That is why saving alone is not financial self-mastery. Saving is the first wall, direction is the door. Without direction, saving can become another form of hiding. Some people spend to avoid fear, other people hoard to avoid fear. Different behavior, same emotional master. One says, I need relief now. The other says, I can never feel safe. Both are being controlled. And that is the point of this journey, not to become someone who spends nothing, not to become someone who worships money, not to become someone who lives small forever because fear sounds responsible. The goal is to become someone who can direct money without panic, because money needs a mission. If money has no mission, emotion will give it one. Fear will say, protect me. Ego will say, prove me. Loneliness will say, comfort me. Comparison will say, upgrade me. Discipline will say, use me wisely. That is the difference. The same dollar can become a trap or a tool depending on the instruction you give it. But this is where most people fail. They think once they stop wasting money, the future will automatically become clear. It does not. Cutting spending creates space, but space can be terrifying if you do not know what to build inside it. That is why people relapse into old habits. They save for a while, they feel restricted, they feel bored. They feel like life is only sacrifice. Then one stressful week hits and they spend hard because at least spending gives them a feeling. Direction prevents that. Direction turns sacrifice into strategy. There is a massive psychological difference between saying, I can't buy this, and saying, I'm not buying this because my money is building something bigger. The first sentence feels like punishment. The second feels like power. A woman in Sacramento decides she wants 6 months of living expenses saved. Not because someone online told her to, because she never wants to stay in a toxic job out of fear again. Now every dollar has meaning. Skipping takeout is not deprivation. It is one step toward being able to leave. Canceling a subscription is not loss. It is one less chain. Driving her older car is not embarrassment. It is proof that her future matters more than appearances. Her behavior changes because her money has a mission. That mission gives pain a purpose, and pain with purpose becomes easier to carry. This is the part nobody sees. Discipline becomes lighter when it is attached to a future you actually want. Most people fail with money because their goals are vague. I want to be rich. I want to be successful. I want to make more. I want financial freedom. Those words sound good. But the brain cannot organize behavior around fog. You need something concrete enough to feel. Freedom from what? Freedom to do what? Do you want to leave a job, move to a safer neighborhood, pay off debt, support your family? Start a business, build a quiet emergency fund, buy back your weekends. Stop panicking every time life surprises you. The clearer the mission, the stronger the control, because clarity creates emotional resistance. When temptation appears, clarity answers. When comparison appears, clarity answers. When pressure appears, clarity answers. Without clarity, every impulse sounds reasonable. That is why someone can save money for months and then destroy the progress in one weekend. Not because they are weak, because the saved money never had a strong enough identity. It was just extra, and extra money is very easy to spend. Mission money is harder to touch. Emergency money has a job. Investment money has a job. Debt payment money has a job. Skill building money has a job. Opportunity money has a job. Peace of mind money has a job. When every dollar has a role, your emotions have less room to hijack it. That is how you stop being controlled. You stop asking only, how much do I have? You start asking, what is this money assigned to protect, build, or create? That question changes your relationship with money, because now money is no longer a mood, it is a system. And systems are stronger than motivation. Motivation depends on how you feel. Systems protect you when your feelings get messy. A man in Orlando gets paid every 2 weeks. For years, payday meant relief, then spending, then anxiety. Now he uses a simple system. A portion protects him. A portion pays down debt. A portion covers bills. A small portion gives him guilt-free enjoyment. A portion goes toward learning a new skill. Nothing dramatic, no fantasy, just direction, and after a few months something changes. Not only his bank balance, his posture. He stands differently because he is no longer waiting for life to tell him where the money went. He is telling money where to go. That feeling is quiet, but it is one of the first tastes of real control. But this is where most people fail. They make their system too extreme. They try to become financially perfect overnight. No fun, no eating out, no spending, no mistakes, no breathing room. That kind of discipline usually breaks. Because if your financial plan feels like a prison, your emotions will eventually stage a jailbreak. A good money system must include humanity. You need protection. You need progress. You need responsibility. And yes, you need some joy, not reckless joy. Chosen joy, that is important. Chosen joy does not destroy discipline, it protects it. Because when you give yourself planned permission to enjoy life, you are less likely to rebel through impulsive spending. The goal is not to hate your present so you can afford a future. The goal is to stop sacrificing your future every time your present feels uncomfortable. That balance is maturity. And maturity is one of the most underrated money skills in the world. Maturity says, I can enjoy today without betraying tomorrow. Immaturity says, I feel bad now so future me can pay for it. That is the real cost of emotional spending. It sends the bill to a version of you who was not there to defend themselves. Direction protects future you. It gives future you a voice. Before you spend, you begin to ask, will future me thank me for this? Not every purchase has to be serious. Sometimes future you will be glad you enjoyed dinner with someone you love. Sometimes future you will be glad you rested. Sometimes future you will be glad you bought the tool, the course, the plane ticket, the therapy session, the gym membership, the book, the clean pair of shoes. The issue is not spending. The issue is unconscious spending. Money with direction can include joy. Money without direction usually becomes either fear or chaos. So here is the practice for this chapter. Give your money names, not complicated labels. Simple missions: protection, freedom, debt, growth. Joy, family, opportunity. When money comes in, assign it before the world assigns it for you, because the world is fast, bills move fast, ads move fast, friends move fast, emotions move fast, emergencies move fast. If your money is unassigned, something will claim it, and usually it will not be your future. Start small. Even if you only have a little left after bills, name it. $5 toward protection, $10 toward debt, $20 toward freedom, one small amount toward joy without guilt. The amount matters less than the identity you are building. You are becoming the kind of person who directs. That identity compounds. First, you direct dollars, then you direct attention, then you direct time, then you direct opportunities, then you direct your life. That is the transformation. From reacting to directing, from panic to assignment, from where did my money go to this is what my money is building. And once you understand direction, you are ready for the next level, because having a plan is powerful. But life will test that plan, stress will test it, people will test it, unexpected bills will test it, temptation will test it, loneliness will test it. And in the next chapter, we will talk about the skill that protects every financial plan from collapsing under pressure. The ability to stay calm when everyone else is panicking. Chapter 7, Calm is the most underrated money skill. Why do some people fall apart under pressure while others seem to get stronger? It is not because they have no fear. It is not because their lives are easy. It is not because they were born with some rare confidence the rest of us missed. The difference is composure, the ability to stay calm long enough to make a clean decision. That one skill can change your entire financial life. Because money pressure does not only attack your bank account, it attacks your judgment. When stress rises, your thinking narrows. When fear rises, your standards drop. When urgency rises, your future becomes negotiable. That is how people end up accepting bad jobs, bad loans, bad contracts, bad relationships, bad purchases, and bad terms. Not because they wanted a worse life. Because they were pressured into a smaller version of themselves. This is the part nobody sees. A man in Houston loses his job on a Tuesday morning. He sits in his car in the parking lot, staring at the steering wheel. His mind starts racing. Rent, insurance, groceries, kids, credit cards, what will people think? By lunch, he is already applying to every job he can find. That sounds responsible, and maybe some action is necessary. But panic has a dangerous speed. Panic says, take anything. Panic says, do not ask questions. Panic says, forget your standards. Panic says, you are running out of time. A week later, he accepts a lower-paying job with worse hours because fear made the decision before strategy could enter the room. This is where most people fail. They think fast action is always strength, but speed without clarity is often just fear wearing running shoes. The calm person does not move slowly because they are lazy. They move carefully because they understand that pressure is a negotiation. Life pressures you, bills pressure you, people pressure you, deadlines pressure you, markets pressure you, your own emotions pressure you, and every pressure asks the same question. Can I make you react before you think? If the answer is yes, you are easy to control. If the answer is no, you become harder to move. That is leverage, not loud confidence. Quiet refusal. A woman in Seattle gets an email from her landlord saying rent will increase. Her first reaction is panic. Her second reaction is anger. Her third reaction is shame because she feels like she should be further ahead by now. Old her would spiral. She would avoid the email, complain to friends, maybe put more on the credit card, maybe start scrolling apartments she cannot afford. But this time she pauses. She opens a blank page. She writes, "What is actually happening? What are my options? What deadline is real? What can wait? What decision would future me respect?" That pause does not magically lower the rent, but it prevents panic from becoming the manager of her life. And that is the beginning of control, because the first job of composure is not to solve everything instantly. The first job of composure is to stop making things worse. Read that again in your mind. Sometimes the most powerful financial move is not an aggressive move. It is not making the panic purchase, not taking the terrible offer, not sending the emotional text. Not quitting with no plan just to feel free for one afternoon, not agreeing to terms because someone made you feel rushed. Composure protects you from self-sabotage. This is the part nobody sees. Most people do not destroy their progress during calm seasons, they destroy it during emotional spikes. One bad week, one humiliating conversation, one emergency, one lonely night, one unexpected bill. One moment where they feel trapped and need relief. That is when the old pattern returns. Spend to breathe, agree to escape, avoid to delay, borrow to numb, react to feel powerful, but reaction is expensive. It often gives you emotional relief today in exchange for financial pressure tomorrow. Calm reverses that. Calm says, I can feel pressure without obeying it. That sentence is financial power. Because the world is full of people trying to make you obey urgency. Salespeople use urgency. Employers use urgency. Debt collectors use urgency. Social media uses urgency. Even your own insecurity uses urgency. You need this now? You must decide today. You are falling behind. You are missing out. You cannot say no. You do not have time. But urgency is not always truth. Sometimes urgency is a weapon. And calm is how you disarm it. But this is where most people fail. They wait until a crisis to practice calm. That does not work. You do not become composed in the storm if you never trained in normal weather. You build calm in small moments. When your food delivery app tempts you after work. When someone invites you somewhere expensive. When your phone shows a sale. When your balance is lower than expected. When a coworker makes you feel small. When someone questions your choices, every small pause is a repetition, and repetition becomes identity. At first, calm feels fake. You may still feel the anxiety in your body. You may still feel the urge to fix everything instantly. You may still want to buy, explain, escape, or say yes. That is normal. Calm is not the absence of emotion. Calm is leadership over emotion. A leader does not pretend the crowd is silent. A leader hears the noise and still chooses the direction. That is what you are building, inner leadership. A man in Philadelphia is negotiating a salary for a new role. The number they offer is better than his current job, but lower than the value he knows he brings. His chest tightens. He wants to say yes immediately because he is afraid they will take the offer away. But he pauses. He says, I appreciate the offer. Based on the responsibilities and my experience, I was expecting something closer to... Then he stops talking. Silence fills the space. Old him would rush to explain. Old him would soften the request. Old him would say, but I'm flexible. This time he lets the silence work. That silence feels terrifying, but it also signals something powerful. I am not desperate enough to negotiate against myself. Even if he does not get the full amount, he has changed something deeper. He has proven to himself that pressure does not own his voice. That kind of self-trust compounds. And if this chapter is helping you rethink how you handle pressure, stay with this series. Subscribe and keep listening because the next chapters build directly on this skill, turning calm into leverage and leverage into real freedom. Now here is the practice. The next time money pressure hits, do not start with action. Start with regulation. Breathe slowly. Put both feet on the floor. Name the emotion. Write the facts. Separate facts from fear. Facts sound like this. My bill is due Friday. My balance is lower than expected. My rent increased by $150. My job situation changed. I need to make a decision. Fear sounds like this. I'm ruined. I'll never recover. Everyone is ahead. I have no options. This always happens to me. You cannot build a strategy from fear statements. You build strategy from facts. Once the facts are clear, ask the strongest question in this chapter: what is the cleanest next move? Not the perfect move, not the most impressive move, not the move that makes the anxiety disappear fastest. The cleanest move. Sometimes the cleanest move is calling the bill provider. Sometimes it is delaying a purchase. Sometimes it is applying to 3 specific jobs instead of 30 desperate ones. Sometimes it is telling someone, I need to check my budget first. Sometimes it is sleeping before deciding. Sometimes it is admitting the truth before the situation gets worse. Clean moves restore dignity, and dignity matters. Because when people feel ashamed, they hide. When they hide, problems grow. When problems grow, panic returns. Composure breaks that chain. It brings you back into contact with reality. And reality, even when painful, is easier to handle than the monsters your fear creates in the dark. So remember this: the goal is not to never feel pressure. The goal is to stop letting pressure choose for you. Because the person who stays calm under financial stress becomes difficult to exploit. They do not rush into bad deals. They do not buy fake comfort. They do not explain from insecurity. They do not collapse when numbers look ugly. They do not let urgency shrink their standards. They pause, they observe, they choose. That is how control returns. One calm decision at a time. And in the next chapter, we move into a deeper kind of power. How to create options so you are no longer forced to negotiate with life from desperation. Chapter 8, Options are the real definition of wealth. What changes when you are no longer forced to take whatever life offers. That is the moment money starts feeling different. Not because you suddenly have millions, not because every problem disappears, but because you have options, and options change your posture. A person with no options asks, what do I have to accept? A person with options asks, what makes sense for me? That difference is enormous. Because when you have no options, almost everything feels like survival. A bad job becomes something you tolerate. A rude client becomes someone you chase. A high-interest loan becomes the only choice. A toxic relationship becomes complicated. A stressful schedule becomes just life. But when options appear, your mind expands. You stop begging reality to be kind. You start choosing your position. This is the part nobody sees. A woman in Atlanta works in customer service. She is good at her job, but her manager knows she needs the paycheck. So the schedule keeps changing. Extra responsibilities appear. Her days off become negotiable. Her patience becomes expected. For a long time, she says nothing, not because she is weak, because she feels trapped. Then she starts building options quietly. She updates her resume. She learns a new software skill at night. She saves a small emergency fund. She applies to better roles before she feels ready. She stops spending money to recover from work she secretly hates. Nothing dramatic happens at first, but inside everything changes. Because now, when her manager pressures her, she is no longer negotiating from total dependence. She has movement, and movement creates power. That is the real purpose of money psychology, not to make you arrogant, to make you harder to corner. Because being cornered is one of the most expensive emotional states in the world. When people feel cornered, they overpay, they undercharge, they accept less. They stay longer, they speak smaller, they rush decisions, they hand control to whoever seems to offer relief. Options are how you stop living cornered. But this is where most people fail. They think options appear after they become successful. In reality, options are built before success becomes visible. You build them in the boring seasons when nobody is watching. When the progress feels slow, when the numbers are not impressive, when the habit looks too small to matter, you build options through skill, you build options through savings, you build options through relationships, you build options through health. You build options through reputation, you build options through emotional control. Every option gives you a little more space between pressure and obedience, and that space is wealth. A man in Arizona has only one source of income. Every month, all his fear is attached to one direct deposit. If that deposit is late, his whole body reacts. If his boss is unhappy, his whole mood shifts. If layoffs are mentioned, he cannot sleep. He thinks his problem is money. But the deeper problem is concentration. Too much of his life depends on one source. One job, one approval system, one schedule, one person's decision, one fragile path. That is why diversification is not just an investment idea. It is a psychological protection system. When your life has only one door, every knock sounds like danger. When your life has multiple doors, pressure loses some of its power. This does not mean you need 5 businesses overnight. That is fantasy advice. It means you start reducing single-point failure. You learn one skill your employer does not own. You build one relationship outside your current circle. You save 1 month of breathing room. You create one small way to earn outside your main paycheck. You improve one area of health so stress does not destroy your judgment. Small options count. Because the person with one extra option behaves differently from the person with none. This is the part nobody sees. The option itself may not even be used, but knowing it exists changes how you move. A backup plan can make your voice steadier. A small savings account can make your no cleaner. A useful skill can make a layoff less terrifying. A strong reputation can make opportunities come faster. A calmer nervous system can keep you from ruining progress in a panic. Options create emotional slack, and emotional slack is what allows strategy. Without slack, every decision feels urgent. With slack, you can ask better questions. Is this good for me? Is this worth the cost? Am I choosing this or fearing something else? What position does this create? What does this make possible later? Those questions are impossible when survival is screaming. So the goal is to quiet survival enough for strategy to speak. That is what options do, but this is where most people fail. They build options only when they are already desperate. They start networking after they need a job. They start saving after the emergency. They start learning after the industry changes. They start caring about health after burnout breaks them. They start setting boundaries after resentment has already poisoned everything. That is backwards. Options are strongest when built before you need them. Because once desperation enters the room, your standards get weaker. You may still survive, but you usually pay more stress, more time, more interest. More emotional damage, more years spent recovering from rushed decisions. The disciplined person pays smaller costs early to avoid larger costs later. That is not exciting, but it is how freedom is built. Think of options like bridges. You do not build the bridge while the building is on fire. You build it before the fire, so when the fire comes, you have somewhere to go, and life always brings fire. A job changes. A rent increase arrives. A relationship ends. A bill surprises you. A parent needs help. A market shifts. A health issue appears. A plan fails. The question is not whether pressure will come, the question is whether pressure will find you trapped or prepared. Preparation is not paranoia. Preparation is self-respect. It says, my future deserves choices. And those choices do not build themselves, you have to make them, quietly, repeatedly, before they look necessary. This is why your daily decisions matter more than they appear. Every unnecessary payment you remove creates an option. Every emotional purchase you delay creates an option. Every hour you spend learning creates an option. Every honest conversation creates an option. Every boundary creates an option. Every debt you reduce creates an option. You are not just saving money, you are buying back future choices. That is a powerful reframe. Because sacrifice feels different when you understand what it is purchasing. You are not skipping one impulse purchase. You are purchasing future calm. You are not learning after work for no reason. You are purchasing future mobility. You are not saying no to a fake obligation. You are purchasing future energy. You are not paying down debt. You are purchasing future permission to move. That is what wealth really is. Permission to move, not permission from others. Permission from your own life, the freedom to leave, the freedom to wait, the freedom to negotiate, the freedom to rest, the freedom to choose better timing, the freedom to refuse disrespect, the freedom to build instead of react. That is why options are more important than appearances. An expensive lifestyle can look like freedom while removing options. A quiet lifestyle can look ordinary while creating them. The outside world may not understand the difference. That is okay. You are not building for applause, you are building for control. So here is the practice for this chapter. Write down the areas where you currently have only one option, one income source, one skill, one social circle, one way to cope with stress, one place to live, one person you depend on, one plan for the future. Do not panic, just identify the concentration. Then choose one area and build a second option, not 10, 1. If your income depends on one job, learn one monetizable skill. If your stress relief depends on spending, create one free recovery ritual. If your confidence depends on approval, practice one private promise you keep to yourself. If your future depends on hope, create one clear plan. If your money depends on payday, build one small emergency buffer. Tiny second options can change your psychology fast. Because the moment you realize, I am not completely trapped, your nervous system begins to loosen its grip. And when fear loosens, intelligence returns. You think better, you speak better, you negotiate better, you spend better. You choose better. That is the compounding effect of options. They do not only change what you can do, they change who you become under pressure. And that is the point, because the world will always pressure people who seem cornered. But the person with options carries a different energy. They are not frantic, they are not begging, they are not easy to rush, they are not desperate to be chosen. They are available for the right thing and unavailable for the wrong one. That is quiet power, and in the next chapter we will take that power deeper. Because once you begin building options, you must learn the skill most people avoid, the ability to say no without guilt. Not as rejection, not as arrogance. As protection for the life you are trying to build. Chapter 9, Saying No Without Guilt. Why does one small word feel so expensive? No, 2 letters, 1 boundary. And yet, for many people, saying it feels like betrayal. You say yes when you are tired. You say yes when you are broke. You say yes when your body wants rest. You say yes when your future needs protection. You say yes because disappointing someone feels more dangerous than disappointing yourself. And that is how people lose control, not all at once. One unnecessary yes at a time. A friend invites you to something expensive and you say yes because you do not want to seem boring. A coworker asks for help again and you say yes because you do not want to seem selfish. A family member asks for money and you say yes because guilt starts speaking louder than wisdom. A boss adds more work and you say yes because fear whispers, "Be careful, you need this." Then later, when nobody is watching, resentment appears, you feel drained, you feel used, you feel behind. You feel angry at people you never gave honest limits to. This is the part nobody sees. Many people are not overwhelmed because life demanded too much. They are overwhelmed because they negotiated against themselves. Before anyone pressured them, they had already abandoned their own boundary. That is why saying no is not just a social skill. It is a financial skill because every yes has a cost. Money, time, energy, attention, focus, peace, future options. And if you say yes without counting the cost, your life becomes crowded with other people's priorities. A woman in Miami is trying to rebuild her savings. She has a plan, nothing extreme, just a simple goal. Stop living so close to the edge. Then her friends invite her to a weekend trip. At first, she knows the answer, not this time, but then the fear arrives. What if they stop inviting me? What if they think I'm broke? What if I miss out? What if everyone else can afford it and I'm the only one who can't? So she says yes. The trip looks fun in pictures, but when she gets home, the pressure is waiting for her. The credit card balance, the guilt, the quiet frustration, the feeling that she betrayed herself for a weekend of belonging. But this is where most people fail. They think the pain of saying no is worse than the cost of saying yes. It usually is not. The pain of saying no is immediate: awkwardness, discomfort, fear of judgment, but the cost of saying yes can last for weeks, months, even years. Debt lasts longer than embarrassment. Burnout lasts longer than approval. Resentment lasts longer than politeness. Lost focus lasts longer than being liked. That is the trade most people never calculate. They choose short-term social comfort and pay with long-term personal control. The reason no feels hard is simple. No threatens identity. If you see yourself as the helpful one, no feels cruel. If you see yourself as the responsible one, no feels risky. If you see yourself as the generous one, no feels selfish. If you see yourself as the easygoing one, no feels like conflict. But a version of you that cannot say no is not kind. That version is unprotected, and unprotected people become exhausted. This is the part nobody sees. People-pleasing often looks like goodness from the outside. But inside, it is fear wearing manners. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing access, fear of being called selfish, fear that love must be earned through constant availability. And when fear is making your decisions, money suffers. You lend money you cannot afford to lose. You attend events you cannot afford to attend. You buy gifts to prove you care. You overwork to prove your value. You undercharge because you fear losing the opportunity. You accept unfair terms because asking for more feels uncomfortable. That is not kindness. That is self-abandonment with good branding. Real kindness includes truth. Real generosity requires capacity. Real loyalty does not require you to destroy yourself quietly. A man in Portland sends money to relatives almost every month. He loves them. He wants to help. But he is also behind on his own bills. Every time he sends money, he feels noble for a moment and anxious for the next 3 weeks. One evening, he finally looks at the pattern. He is not helping from overflow. He is helping from fear. Fear that if he says no, he will be judged. Fear that if he sets limits, he will be seen as selfish. Fear that his worth in the family depends on what he can provide. That realization hurts. But it gives him a new sentence. I can help, but not at the cost of my own stability. That sentence is not cruel, it is adult, because unstable people cannot provide stable help. If you keep giving from a place of panic, eventually you will need rescue too. This is where financial boundaries become sacred, not dramatic. Sacred, a boundary is a promise to your future. It says, I will not sacrifice the life I am building for every pressure that appears today. That does not mean you never help people. It does not mean you become cold. It does not mean you stop caring. It means your help becomes honest. You stop giving money when what you really owe is a conversation. You stop giving time when what you really need is rest. You stop giving discounts when what you really need is self-respect. You stop giving explanations when what you really need is a clear decision. And the cleaner your no becomes, the stronger your yes becomes. Because a person who cannot say no cannot truly say yes. They can only comply. A real yes comes from choice. A fake yes comes from fear. Most people can feel the difference in their body. A real yes feels grounded. A fake yes feels tight. A real yes feels generous. A fake yes feels resentful. A real yes gives energy. A fake yes drains it before the event even begins. So your body often knows before your mouth admits it. Start listening. But this is where most people fail. They over-explain. They say no, then immediately panic and bury the no under paragraphs. I'm so sorry, I really wish I could, it's just that this week has been crazy and money is kind of tight and I have this thing and maybe next time and please don't be mad. That kind of explanation often weakens the boundary. Because over-explaining invites negotiation. You are not presenting a decision, you are asking to be understood, and while being understood is nice, it is not always required. A calm no can be simple. I can't make it this time. That does not work for my budget right now. I'm not available for that. I can help with this amount, but I cannot go beyond it. I need to protect my time this week. I'm going to pass. Short. Respectful, final, no performance, no guilt theater, no courtroom defense. The more comfortable you become with clean language, the less your life leaks through emotional loopholes. And if this chapter is speaking to something you have been carrying, stay with the series and subscribe for the next part. Because once you learn to say no, the next step is learning where to put the energy, money, and focus you just protected. Here is the practice for this chapter. This week, choose one small no, not the biggest, scariest boundary in your life. One small no. Decline one plan that does not fit your budget. Delay one request that interrupts your focus. Refuse one impulse purchase that is really about approval. Tell one person, I can't do that this week. Stop offering explanations before anyone even asks. Then notice what happens. You may feel guilt. That does not mean you did something wrong. It means your nervous system is used to earning safety through compliance. Let the guilt pass without obeying it. Guilt is not always a moral signal. Sometimes guilt is just withdrawal from people-pleasing. That line matters, because when you start protecting yourself, old patterns will protest. They will say you are becoming selfish. They will say you are changing. They will say you are not as available as before. And maybe that is true, maybe you are changing, maybe you are becoming less available for your own destruction. That is not selfish. That is survival becoming self-respect. The financially controlled person cannot be endlessly accessible. They must protect the gap between income and spending, the gap between emotion and action, the gap between pressure and response. The gap between what others want and what their future requires. That gap is where freedom grows. So remember this, every no to the wrong thing becomes a yes to something stronger. Yes to peace. Yes to savings. Yes to focus. Yes to energy. Yes to self-trust. Yes to the version of you who no longer lives controlled by guilt. And in the next chapter, we will talk about what happens when that self-trust begins to compound. Because once you stop leaking power through emotional yeses, you can finally start building the one thing that changes your entire financial direction. A system that keeps you disciplined even when motivation disappears. Chapter 10, build a system that works when motivation dies. What do you do when you no longer feel inspired? That is where the real test begins. Because almost everyone can make a plan when they feel motivated. After a painful bill, after a scary bank balance, after a late-night realization, after watching a video that makes them feel powerful for a few hours, in that moment the future looks clear. You say, I'm done living like this. You promise to save. You promise to stop wasting money. You promise to track everything. You promise to wake up earlier. You promise to learn the skill. You promise to become disciplined. And for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, it works. Then life returns, work gets stressful, sleep gets messy, friends make plans, a bill surprises you, your mood drops, your body gets tired. The old version of you starts whispering again, just this once, you deserve it. You can restart Monday, it's not that serious. You're already behind anyway. That is when motivation disappears. And if your plan depends on motivation, your plan collapses. This is the part nobody sees. A man in Kansas City decides he is going to fix his money. He makes a perfect spreadsheet. He watches budgeting videos. He writes goals in a notebook. He feels focused. For 10 days he is locked in, then his car needs repairs. The repair wipes out most of what he saved. Suddenly the emotional reward is gone. He feels punished for trying. So he stops tracking, he orders food, he ignores his account. He tells himself the system does not work, but the system was not the problem. The problem was that he built a plan for his motivated self, not his tired self. That is one of the biggest mistakes people make. They design their financial life as if they will always be calm, rested, focused, and emotionally strong. They forget that the real version of them has hard days. The real version gets stressed. The real version gets lonely. The real version gets tempted. The real version gets discouraged. The real version sometimes wants comfort more than progress. A good system understands that. A weak system requires you to become a perfect person. A strong system protects you while you are still human. That is the difference. Financial self-mastery is not about trusting your mood. It is about building structures that make better decisions easier and worse decisions harder. Because your environment is always shaping you. If spending apps are one tap away, spending becomes easy. If savings happen only when you remember, saving becomes inconsistent. If all your money sits in one account, emotional spending becomes more likely. If every free moment is filled with scrolling, comparison becomes normal. If your friends only connect through spending, boundaries become harder. Your life is not just willpower, Your life is architecture. And if the architecture is built for impulse, impulse will win. But this is where most people fail. They try to beat a bad environment with good intentions. That rarely works. Good intentions are weak when the system around you is designed to harvest attention, urgency, and insecurity. So instead of asking, "How do I become more motivated?" ask a better question. "How do I make the right move automatic?" That question changes everything. A woman in Raleigh gets paid every 2 weeks. In the past, payday meant emotional relief. She would pay bills, spend a little, promise to save whatever was left, then wonder why nothing was left. So she changes the order. On payday, money automatically moves into separate places. Bills, savings, debt, food, joy. Now she does not have to emotionally negotiate with every dollar. The decision is made before her mood gets involved. That is what a system does. It removes your weakest moments from the decision-making process. Because the truth is, you cannot negotiate with yourself every day and expect to win every time. Some days you will be strong, some days you will not. So stop making every day a vote on your future. Build a system where your future wins by default. This is the part nobody sees. Discipline is not always a feeling. Sometimes discipline is a setup. It is deleting the shopping app. It is leaving the credit card at home. It is using a 24-hour rule. It is meal prepping just enough to avoid panic spending. It is setting automatic transfers. It is keeping one account slightly inconvenient to access. It is writing your money mission where you can see it. It is checking your numbers at the same time every week. None of this looks dramatic. Nobody claps for it, but these small structures quietly reduce the number of battles you have to fight. And that matters because decision fatigue is real. By the end of a long day, your brain does not want discipline, it wants ease. So if the easiest option is expensive, your life becomes expensive. If the easiest option is aligned, your life becomes stronger. That is why the goal is not to become superhuman. The goal is to make your desired behavior the path of least resistance. A man in Las Vegas wants to stop buying lunch every day at work. He has tried willpower before. It always fails by Wednesday, so he stops making it a moral issue. He puts 3 simple meals in the fridge every Sunday night. Nothing fancy, just enough. Now when lunch comes, he does not need to become a disciplined warrior. He just needs to eat what is already there. That one system saves him money, but more importantly, it saves mental energy. And mental energy is money. Because the more exhausted your mind becomes, the more likely you are to buy relief, accept pressure, and avoid reality. Systems protect mental energy. They reduce chaos. They make progress less dependent on emotional weather. But this is where most people fail. They build systems that are too complicated. They create 12 categories, 5 apps, strict rules, color-coded trackers, unrealistic savings targets, and a perfect plan that requires a perfect week. Then real life happens. One mistake breaks the system. And because the system was built around perfection, the person feels like they failed. A strong system should be simple enough to survive a bad week. That sentence is important. Your system must survive stress. It must survive fatigue. It must survive a missed day. It must survive a surprise bill. It must survive imperfect choices, because consistency is not never falling off. Consistency is knowing how to return without drama. The person who recovers quickly wins. Not the person who never slips. A good financial system includes a reset button. Spent too much this weekend? Reset Monday morning, missed your tracking day, reset tonight, emergency wiped out savings, restart with the next paycheck. Ate out twice when you plan not to, return to the plan without turning the mistake into an identity. The old mindset says, I messed up, so I might as well give up. The controlled mindset says, I slipped, but I am still the kind of person who returns. That identity is powerful. Because self-trust is not built by perfection. It is built by returning, again and again, without self-hatred, without the dramatic restart speech, without waiting for a new month, new year, new personality, or new burst of motivation. You return because the system is still there. That is what makes systems stronger than moods. A mood is temporary, a system waits. So here is the practice for this chapter. Create 3 simple financial anchors. First, a payday anchor. Before you spend from your paycheck, assign the money, even if the amounts are small. Protection, bills, debt, growth, joy. Second, a pause anchor. Any non-essential purchase waits 24 hours, not forever. Just long enough for emotion to lose its grip. Third, a weekly truth anchor. Once a week, look at your numbers. No drama, no shame, no avoidance, just truth. What came in, what went out, what needs attention. What is the cleanest next move? These 3 anchors are not flashy, but they are stabilizing. They turn money from a source of panic into a rhythm you can manage, and rhythm matters. Because transformation is not built through one heroic decision. It is built through repeated ordinary decisions that slowly change what feels normal. At first, saving feels unnatural, then it becomes normal. At first, saying no feels uncomfortable, then it becomes clean. At first, checking your numbers feels scary, then it becomes responsible. At first, waiting before buying feels restrictive, then it feels powerful. That is how identity changes, not through hype, through repetition. One day you realize you no longer trust urgency the way you used to. You no longer spend every time life hurts. You no longer need to look successful at the cost of being stable. You no longer say yes just because guilt knocks on the door. You no longer collapse when motivation disappears, because now you have something stronger, a system. And a system is how the future version of you reaches back into the present and protects you. That is real control. In the next chapter, we move into the deeper emotional layer behind discipline. How to stop needing quick rewards so you can build a life that finally rewards you back. Chapter 11, Stop Needing Quick Rewards. Why does the right path feel so boring at first? That question matters. Because many people do not quit because the plan is wrong. They quit because progress does not feel rewarding fast enough. Saving money feels slow. Paying debt feels slow. Learning a skill feels slow. Building discipline feels slow. Changing your identity feels painfully slow. But spending gives a reward instantly. Scrolling gives a reward instantly. Ordering food gives a reward instantly. Buying something new gives a reward instantly. Getting attention gives a reward instantly. And that is the battle most people are really fighting. Not money versus no money, not discipline versus laziness. It is quick relief versus quiet progress. This is the part nobody sees. A woman in Detroit decides to pay off her credit card. She makes a plan. She cuts back. She sends extra money toward the balance. After 2 months, she has made progress, but the number still looks ugly. She does not feel free yet. She feels tired. Then one night after a stressful week, she sees a sale online. The item is not crazy expensive. It feels harmless. It feels like a little reward for trying, so she buys it, then another small thing, then takeout. Then a weekend plan, then the card balance creeps back up. She feels ashamed, but the real problem was not the purchase. The real problem was that her brain wanted a reward before the transformation had time to show itself. That is where most people fail. They underestimate how addicted the mind becomes to fast emotional payment. The modern world trains you to expect immediate feedback. Post something, get likes. Order something, get tracking. Watch something, get stimulation. Swipe, click, scroll, buy, refresh. Everything gives your brain a little hit, but wealth does not usually arrive like that. Self-mastery does not arrive like that. A better life is built quietly before it feels exciting. That is why discipline can feel like loss in the beginning. You are losing the old rewards before the new rewards are visible. You stop spending for comfort, but peace has not fully arrived yet. You stop saying yes from guilt, but confidence has not fully arrived yet. You stop performing success, but freedom has not fully arrived yet. You start saving, but security still feels far away. That middle space is dangerous, because the old life is no longer satisfying, but the new life is not yet strong. This is where many people go back. Not because they truly want the old life, because the old life gives faster feedback. A man in San Diego starts learning a higher income skill after work. At first, he feels excited. He imagines better options, better money, more freedom. Then week 3 comes. He is tired. The lessons are harder. The progress is invisible. Nobody is impressed. His paycheck has not changed. His friends are out having fun. Suddenly, discipline feels stupid. So he stops for a few days. A few days become a few weeks. A few weeks become, I'll get back to it when life calms down. But life rarely calms down on its own. You have to become the calm inside it, and that requires learning how to live without constant reward. This is the part nobody sees. People who build real control are not always more motivated. They are more tolerant of unrewarded effort. They can keep doing the right thing while it still looks like nothing is happening. That ability is rare, and rare abilities create rare outcomes. Most people need proof before they stay consistent. The disciplined person understands that consistency comes before proof. You do not wait to feel confident before acting. You act until confidence has evidence. You do not wait to feel free before saving. You save until freedom has structure. You do not wait to feel powerful before saying no. You say no until power becomes familiar. That is how identity is built, not by waiting for the feeling, by training the behavior. But this is where most people fail. They treat boredom like a warning sign. They think, if this feels boring, maybe it is not working. No, boredom is often the sound of chaos leaving your life. When you stop emotional spending, life may feel boring at first. When you stop chasing approval, relationships may feel quieter. When you stop performing success, weekends may feel less impressive. When you stop needing constant stimulation, your mind may feel restless. That does not mean you are failing. It means your nervous system is detoxing from urgency, and urgency is addictive. Urgency makes you feel alive. Urgency gives you drama. Urgency gives you a problem to solve. Urgency gives you a reason to avoid the deeper work. Stability feels boring when chaos has been your normal, so the new life may not feel amazing immediately. It may feel plain, simple meals, quiet evenings, budget checks, skill practice, earlier nights, fewer impulse buys, cleaner boundaries, less drama. At first, your ego may hate it because ego wants the movie trailer. But growth often looks like behind-the-scenes footage. Unsexy, repetitive, private, unapplauded, that is where the real person is built. A man in Queens starts walking every evening instead of spending money after work. No fancy routine. No dramatic transformation, just a walk. The first week it feels pointless. The second week he notices he orders less takeout. The third week he sleeps better. The fourth week he checks his account and realizes something small but powerful. He did not become rich, but he stopped bleeding. That is how control begins. Small enough to miss, strong enough to compound. And if this chapter is helping you understand why you keep quitting too early, stay with this journey and subscribe. The next chapters are where the transformation becomes practical, visible, and harder to reverse. Here is the shift. You must stop asking, "How do I reward myself right now?" and start asking, "What reward am I building that my future self will actually respect?" Because not all rewards are equal. Some rewards calm you for 10 minutes and cost you for months. Some rewards feel boring today and give you peace for years. A paid-off debt is a reward. A quiet nervous system is a reward. A job you are not afraid to leave is a reward. A savings account that protects your dignity is a reward. A skill that gives you options is a reward. A boundary that saves your energy is a reward. Self-trust is a reward. But these rewards mature slowly. You cannot microwave them, you have to plant them. And planting always looks less exciting than eating. That is why the immature mind consumes the seed. The mature mind plants it. Every dollar you save is a seed. Every impulse you delay is a seed. Every skill session is a seed. Every honest budget check is a seed. Every clean no is a seed. Every calm response under pressure is a seed. At first, seeds look like nothing, but the person who keeps planting eventually lives in a different environment, not because life magically became easy, because they stopped consuming every future advantage for present comfort. That is the core of money psychology. You either use today to escape yesterday or you use today to build tomorrow. Most people choose escape because tomorrow feels too far away, but tomorrow always arrives. And when it does, it brings receipts. The question is, will tomorrow meet a version of you who protected it or a version of you who kept borrowing from it? That question can change your life if you let it. So here is the practice for this chapter. Create a slow reward list. Write down 5 rewards that do not happen instantly but would deeply change your life. 3 months of expenses saved. 1 credit card paid off. A new skill completed. A healthier body. A calmer home. A cleaner schedule. A stronger professional reputation. A life with fewer people you need to impress. Then choose one, not all 5. 1. And for the next 30 days, give that reward proof. Small proof, $10, 20 minutes, 1 boundary, 1 practice session, 1 avoided impulse, 1 honest check-in. Do not chase intensity, chase evidence. Because every small proof tells your brain, this is who we are now. That is how transformation becomes real, not through fantasy, through evidence. And once enough evidence stacks up, the old rewards lose their grip. The impulse purchase feels less powerful. The fake status symbol feels less tempting. The guilt yes feels less automatic. The emotional escape feels less necessary. You begin to prefer peace over stimulation. That is when you know your identity is changing. Because the old version of you needed quick rewards to survive the day. The new version of you is building rewards so strong they can protect your life. That is the difference. And in the next chapter, we will talk about the final form of this control, how to turn discipline into identity so you are no longer forcing yourself to change. You simply become the kind of person who does not go back. Chapter 12, become the person who does not go back. What changes when discipline stops feeling like something you force? That is the point most people never reach. They spend years trying to control themselves from the outside. Rules, restrictions, punishment, shame, motivation, new plans, new apps, new promises, but deep transformation does not happen when you keep forcing yourself to behave differently. It happens when you begin seeing yourself differently. Because identity is stronger than motivation. Motivation says, I should save money. Identity says, I am not the kind of person who abandons my future. Motivation says, I should stop impulse spending. Identity says, I do not buy relief that creates pressure. Motivation says, I should say no. Identity says, I protect the life I am building. That is the shift. At first, discipline feels like effort. Then it becomes evidence. Then it becomes identity. And once it becomes identity, going back starts feeling unnatural. This is the part nobody sees. A man in Columbus spends years trying to fix his money. Every January, he starts strong. Every March, the plan fades. Every emergency feels like proof that he will never change. Then one year, he stops making giant promises. He stops saying, this is the year I become rich. Instead, he chooses one identity. I am a person who faces the truth. That is it. Every Friday morning, he opens his bank account, not to shame himself, not to panic, not to create a perfect plan, just to face the truth. The first few weeks hurt. He sees the subscriptions, the food delivery, the random purchases, the quiet leaks, the emotional patterns he used to ignore, but he keeps showing up. After 2 months, something changes. The numbers are not perfect, but he is no longer hiding. And that one identity, the person who faces the truth, begins to rebuild everything else. Because avoidance was the old identity, awareness becomes the new one, but this is where most people fail. They try to become a completely different person overnight. They say, I'm going to save aggressively. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm never eating out again. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to build a business, pay off debt, meditate, read, invest, and change my whole life. That sounds powerful. But often, it is just panic wearing ambition. The nervous system hears a plan that big and quietly prepares to quit, because your current identity cannot carry too many new behaviors at once. Real identity change is built through believable proof. Small actions repeated until your brain can no longer deny the pattern. You do not become disciplined because you announce it. You become disciplined because you keep giving yourself evidence. One delayed purchase, one honest budget check, one calm response, one clean no, one saved dollar, one night where you choose rest instead of revenge spending. One moment where you feel the urge and do not obey it. Small proof, again and again. That is how the self-image changes. A woman in Chicago used to say, I'm terrible with money. That sentence followed her everywhere. Every late payment confirmed it. Every impulse purchase confirmed it. Every avoided bank statement confirmed it. Every failed budget confirmed it. Then she changes the sentence, not into fake positivity. Not, I'm amazing with money. Her brain would reject that. She chooses something believable. I am learning to become steady with money. That sentence gives her room to improve without pretending, room to make mistakes without collapsing, room to return after a bad week, room to build trust slowly. And every small action becomes evidence for the new identity. She waits 24 hours before buying. She pays a little extra on debt. She tells a friend, "I'm keeping this month simple." She checks her account even when she does not want to, nothing dramatic, but the identity begins to move. This is the part nobody sees. Your brain believes what you repeatedly prove. Not what you hope, not what you post, not what you promise at midnight when you are tired of yourself, what you prove. That is why tiny actions matter. They are votes. Every action votes for a version of you. When you spend to escape, you vote for the identity of someone controlled by discomfort. When you avoid your numbers, you vote for the identity of someone who hides from reality. When you say yes from guilt, you vote for the identity of someone who trades peace for approval. But when you pause, when you face the truth, when you choose the cleaner move, when you protect your future, you vote for someone stronger. And eventually, the votes become a majority. That is identity, not perfection. Pattern, but this is where most people fail. They think one mistake deletes the new identity. They overspend once and say, "See, I haven't changed." They miss 1 week and say, "I always ruin it." They feel temptation and say, "I guess I'm still the same." No, a mistake is not an identity. A repeated surrender is. The new version of you is not proven by never slipping. The new version is proven by how fast you return. Return is the skill. Return after the bad purchase. Return after the skipped budget check. Return after the emotional week. Return after the awkward conversation. Return after the plan gets interrupted. The old identity needed failure to become an excuse. The new identity uses failure as information. That is control. A man in Brooklyn spends too much during a stressful weekend. Old him would avoid the bank account for 2 weeks and let the shame grow. New him opens the numbers Monday morning. He does not insult himself. He asks, "What triggered this? What damage needs repair? What system would make this less likely next time? What is the cleanest next move?" That response is identity in action, not because he was perfect. Because he did not abandon himself after imperfection. That is one of the deepest forms of self-mastery. To stop using mistakes as permission to disappear. Most people do not need more motivation. They need a new relationship with failure. Failure should not become a courtroom where you sentence yourself. Failure should become a classroom where you study the pattern. What pressure broke you? What emotion moved you? What environment tempted you? What boundary was missing? What system failed to protect you? Now the mistake has value. It becomes data, and data creates better design. That is how you become someone who does not go back, not by hating the old version of yourself. By understanding why that version existed. The old version of you was not evil, it was coping. It spent money to feel relief. It said yes to feel safe. It avoided numbers to avoid shame. It performed success to feel accepted. It chased quick rewards because life felt heavy. That version helped you survive something. But survival patterns become prisons when you keep them too long. So you do not need to destroy the old self, you need to outgrow it with evidence. With patience, with structure, with calm repetition. You need to become the kind of person whose choices make the old life harder to return to, because the old life had rhythm too. Stress, spend, regret. Fear, comply, resent. Avoid, panic, repair, compare, upgrade, pressure, promise, fail, shame. The new life needs a stronger rhythm. Pause, observe, choose, earn, assign, protect. Feel, name, regulate, decide, act, return, build, repeat, trust. That rhythm becomes your new normal, and once it becomes normal, discipline does not feel like a fight every day. It feels like alignment. You are no longer constantly asking, "What should I do?" You already know. You are someone who protects your future. You are someone who tells the truth. You are someone who does not buy false relief. You are someone who builds options. You are someone who stays calm under pressure. You are someone who returns quickly. That identity is not loud. It does not need applause. It does not need everyone to understand. It just needs proof. So here is the practice for this chapter. Choose one identity sentence. Make it simple, make it believable, make it strong enough to guide behavior. I am becoming steady with money. I protect my future before I comfort my ego. I face the truth without shame. I do not let pressure choose for me. I build options quietly. I return fast. Then, for the next 7 days, give that sentence one piece of proof every day. Not a huge proof, a real proof. Check your numbers, delay the purchase, say the clean no, save a small amount, cook the simple meal, take the walk instead of buying relief, work on the skill for 20 minutes. Write down what you felt before spending, one proof per day. By the end of the week, you will not be transformed completely, but you will have something more valuable than a temporary burst of motivation. You will have evidence. And evidence is what the new self stands on, because confidence without evidence is fragile. But confidence built from repeated action becomes quiet and hard to shake. That is the person who does not go back. Not because the old life disappears, but because the new identity becomes stronger than the old temptation. And in the final chapter, everything comes together. The pain, the pressure, the emotional spending, the dependence, the boundaries, the systems, the slow rewards, and the identity shift. Because the final goal was never just to make more money, it was to become unshakable. Chapter 13, Become Financially Unshakable. What happens when money no longer controls who you become under pressure? That is the real transformation. Not just having more in the account, not just paying off one bill, not just saving enough to breathe for a while. Those things matter, but the deeper victory is internal. The real victory is when life applies pressure and you do not collapse into the old version of yourself. You do not panic by comfort. You do not say yes from guilt. You do not hide from the numbers. You do not perform success while privately drowning. You do not let urgency bully you into bad decisions. You pause, you breathe, you look at reality, you choose. That is what it means to become financially unshakable. Not untouched. Unshakable, there is a difference. Untouched means life never hurts you, that is fantasy. Unshakable means life can hurt you, pressure you, disappoint you, surprise you, and still not fully own your reaction. That is power. This is the part nobody sees. A woman in Tampa gets hit with an unexpected medical bill. A year ago, this would have wrecked her emotionally. She would have avoided the envelope for days. Then she would have opened it, panicked, put something on a credit card, ordered food to calm down, and told herself she was terrible with money. But now she is different, not rich. Different. She opens the bill, her chest still tightens. But she does not obey the panic. She writes down the amount. She checks the due date. She calls to ask about payment options. She reviews her protection fund. She adjusts the month. It is not fun, it is not glamorous, but it is clean. And clean decisions are how powerful lives are built, because the point was never to create a life with no problems. The point was to become a person who does not turn every problem into a bigger one. That is where most people lose years, not from the original problem, from the reaction to the problem. The bill hurts. then avoidance adds late fees, the job is stressful, then emotional spending adds debt, the friendship feels tense. Then people-pleasing adds resentment, the income feels low, then comparison adds lifestyle pressure. The mistake happens, then shame turns it into an identity, but the unshakable person breaks that chain. They understand something most people never fully accept: your first reaction is not your final decision. Fear can speak first, but it does not have to speak last. This is the part nobody sees. A man in Phoenix loses overtime hours. His paycheck shrinks. For a moment, the old fear returns. What if I fall behind? What if I cannot fix this? What if this is the beginning of everything getting worse? Those thoughts appear. But now he knows how to separate facts from fear. The fact is, income changed. The fear is, life is over. Those are not the same, so he does not let fear write the plan. He reduces one expense. He pauses non-essential spending. He messages 2 contacts. He applies to 3 better opportunities. He uses the time to build a skill he had been delaying. He does not pretend it feels good. He just refuses to become helpless. That refusal is wealth. Because helplessness is expensive. Helpless people wait to be rescued. Unshakable people look for the next clean move. Helpless people hide from reality. Unshakable people face reality early. Helpless people spend to escape pressure. Unshakable people regulate before they decide. Helpless people protect their image. Unshakable people protect their options. That is the whole journey. You started with a simple pain. You work hard but still feel trapped. Behind that pain was a pattern. Money controlled your emotions. Dependence controlled your choices. Predictability made you easy to influence. Image kept you performing stability. Emotional spending gave pain temporary relief. Saving without direction created fear. Pressure attacked your judgment. Lack of options made life feel like a corner. Guilt weakened your boundaries. Motivation failed when life got hard. Quick rewards stole from slow freedom. Identity kept pulling you back into old behavior. And step by step, you learned a different way. Pause before reaction. Direction before spending. Options before desperation, boundaries before resentment, systems before motivation. Slow rewards before quick relief, identity before temporary discipline. This is not just money psychology, this is self-leadership, because money is one of the clearest mirrors in your life. It reveals what you fear, it reveals what you avoid. It reveals what you value. It reveals where you seek approval. It reveals how you respond to pressure. It reveals whether you are building freedom or buying relief. And once you can look into that mirror without flinching, you become dangerous to your old life. Not because everything becomes easy, because denial loses power. A person who tells the truth can change. A person who hides must repeat. But this is where most people fail. They treat transformation like a finish line. They think one day they will arrive at a perfect version of themselves who never gets tempted, never feels fear, never makes mistakes, never wants comfort, never feels behind. That person does not exist. The unshakable person is not perfect. They are practiced. They have practiced pausing. They have practiced telling the truth. They have practiced returning after mistakes. They have practiced saying no. They have practiced delaying relief. They have practiced assigning money. They have practiced choosing long-term peace over short-term performance. Practice becomes pattern, pattern becomes identity, identity becomes destiny. That is how a life changes, quietly first, then obviously. One day you notice you did not buy the thing you would have bought before. One day you notice you checked your account without fear. One day you notice you said no and survived the guilt. One day you notice someone tried to rush you and you did not move. One day you notice your money has a mission. One day you notice your life feels less chaotic, not perfect, less owned. That is freedom beginning. This is the part nobody sees. Freedom rarely announces itself loudly at first. It appears as a quieter nervous system, a little space between paychecks, a little less fear when bills arrive, a little more honesty in your relationships, a little more control over your attention, a little more pride in private decisions nobody clapped for. The world may not notice, but you will feel it in the way you walk into a room. You will feel it when you stop needing to prove you are okay. You will feel it when you can let people misunderstand your discipline without rushing to explain. You will feel it when your future finally feels like someone you are protecting, not someone you keep betraying. That is the moment money becomes a tool again, not a master, not a judge, not a drug, not a scoreboard, a tool for safety, a tool for options, a tool for dignity, a tool for peace. A tool for building the kind of life you do not need to escape from. And that is the deeper goal, not to become rich so people admire you, but to become free enough that admiration no longer controls you. Because if you still need approval to feel successful, money will not save you. It will only give you more expensive ways to perform. Real wealth is quieter than that. Real wealth is choosing your pace, choosing your standards, choosing your environment, choosing your commitments, choosing who gets access to your energy, choosing what your money is assigned to build. Real wealth is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like peace. And peace is hard to sell, which is why so few people teach it. Chaos sells better, urgency sells better, insecurity sells better, comparison sells better, but peace builds better. And if you have listened this far, you already know the truth. You do not need another quick reward. You need a life that rewards you back. You do not need another temporary escape. You need a mind that can sit with discomfort and still choose wisely. You do not need to look successful to strangers. You need to stop being financially controlled in private. That is the work, and it begins again tomorrow, not someday. Tomorrow, when the sale appears, when the bill arrives, when the guilt hits, when the pressure rises, when the old habit whispers, when the easy escape offers itself, that is where the new identity must show up, not in theory, in the moment. So here is the final practice. Build your personal control code. 5 sentences. Simple, clear, strong. Write them down. For example, I face my numbers without shame. I do not buy relief that creates pressure. I pause when urgency tries to control me. I protect my future before I protect my image. I return quickly when I slip. That is your code, not because 5 sentences magically change your life. Because they remind you who is leading. Every time pressure appears, return to the code. When you want to spend from pain, return to the code. When you want to say yes from guilt, return to the code. When you want to hide from reality, return to the code. When you want to impress people at the cost of your peace, return to the code. The code becomes a bridge between the person you were and the person you are becoming. And if this full journey gave you clarity, save it, replay it, and subscribe for more deep self-mastery chapters like this. Because one listen can open your eyes, but repetition is what rebuilds your identity. You do not become unshakable by hearing the truth once. You become unshakable by living it when it is inconvenient. That is where the transformation becomes real. when nobody is watching, when the reward is slow, when the pressure is loud. When the old pattern feels easier, when the future cannot thank you yet. Choose anyway, pause anyway, return anyway, build anyway, because every clean decision is a vote, every vote is evidence. Every piece of evidence strengthens the identity, and one day you will look back at the version of yourself who was controlled by pressure, guilt, urgency, comparison, and fear. You will not hate that person, you will understand them. They were trying to survive, but you are not here only to survive, you are here to lead your life. And leadership begins with control, not control over everything that happens, control over what you become next. That is the final lesson. Money will test you, life will pressure you, people will misunderstand you, old habits will call you back, but you are no longer the person who obeys every feeling. You are no longer the person who trades tomorrow for relief today. You are no longer the person who performs stability while losing peace. You are becoming the person who can stand inside pressure and still choose. And that person is hard to break. That person is hard to rush. That person is hard to sell false freedom to. That person is hard to control. That person is financially unshakable.